Actually, something exactly the same. The Super A Hemi cars in class eliminations, nicknamed the Mopar Hemi Challenge. The 68 Darts and Barracudas duking it out with these big elephant motors under the hood. First pair up is going to be Jim Daniels on the left side, Jim Pancake on the right. It's a couple of Darts and Herb McCandless back up here in the tower. How many of these Hemi cars would show up for class when you were racing back in the day?
Oh, it wasn't unusual here to have 60 or 70 of them drawn.
And they only built 50 of each, right? This baby bad. Which Jim's coming back next round? It's going to be Jim Daniels. 848, 157 the speed. Pancake goes 860 at 155. And again, both drivers in the teens doing their job at this end of the racetrack. That'll bring up Charlie Westcott, the Warfish, who has not looked like his dominating self, at least so far this year, and David Barton. So a couple of guys that are in the engine building business, and well, it gets personal when you're out there against another engine builder.
Well, like you were talking this morning, somebody finds something that's not long, everybody else catches up, and then you got to go find something else.
Well, the Westcott family for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer than that, have been the favorites coming in here, but David Barton, who again supplies power for a lot of the guys, that's going to be a clutch car on the left side. For Jessel Valve Train Innovation, the Warfish, and I'm not sure that car's not broken. Barton's got the top of the LED lit, the pre-stage light. Been sitting there for a while. Everybody's kind of looking at the green machine saying, well, I don't know.
You know, the faster these cars go, the harder it is to make them go faster. Because you just keep finding and keep finding until there's nothing else left to find. And you find little bitty bits.
Hey, look at Barton's crew guys down there. They're not very happy about the fact that Charlie Westcott took that much time getting up there, getting set and ready to go. And after that, it's all the green machine, 849. 158 the speed, doing 858. 156, and you can still see that David Barton's guys down there on the starting line a little bit unhappy. I don't know exactly what was going on over on Westcott's side of the track, but after the burnout, it took it a long time before he pulled up at stage. He will, however, advance. Wendell House now, the Canadian. Barracuda over there on the left side, and Steve Camella, the New York runner, in the dark. 70 of these cars.
Yeah, when they called the Hemi cars, the street Hemi cars were the same way. We stock weeks.
Scoreboard lights up down there. And Steve Camella takes his foot off the gas. 960, only 104 miles an hour. 855, $156 for Wendell, but he threw that baby away on the red light start.
You know, Super Stock only had 8 or 10 classes maybe back then. It wasn't all that many. And of course, the package cars were the big deal because that's what they were. They were factory race cars.
And how many of you guys actually got factory support? I know that they built 50 of them. I know that some of them were earmarked, but there were a few guys that, if nothing else, at least had a backdoor program.
Well, I got started with them in '65, and what I got was a parts contract. And the more we raced, the more we did. You know, they took care of us on parts and pieces more so than anything. I never had a free car until 1970 when I got with Buddy and Ronnie. But there were a lot of parts deals where they gave people parts. They went out and raced every weekend and raced really hard.
For those of you who might be wondering, Buddy and Marty, Sox and Martin, Buddy and Marty. On the starting line, but he just doesn't have anything at the finish line. How about Tyler? 847. That's right up there in Westcottville, 158 the speed. And Tyler will advance into the next round. It's a 2 Barracudas. Gus Manuels with a big surprise in round number 1. I don't know if you call it an upset, but it was definitely a surprise that he took down Charlie Sr. and Joe Teuton. Little Joe, the car dealer, his dad down there on the starting line. How many? His dad's been coming to the races as long as you have.
Well, I met him here in '61 or '62, somewhere along in there, and he's been here ever since.
He's had a lot of success both in business and in racing. And their getaway from the office, the King and Cuda, down there on the right side of the racetrack in the blue machine of Gus Manos over in the left. So parts, huh?
Yeah, that was our deal. We got them. We call on Monday, tell them where we raced, what we did, and what we did. And they would arrive in a couple of days.
That Hemi may have just pushed its guts out down there. 8:59, 1:56 for Little Joe. He'll advance into the next round, and you saw all the blue coming out from under the blue car, and definitely not good. The over-the-wall gang already out there taking a look.
Hopefully it was just a leak or something, because that's deathly expensive when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, coming all the way to India, not being able to advance is bad enough. Going home with a broken race car is just like, what, are you kidding me?
I broke mine at Union Hill, which they call Music City now. And I actually put a rod in the stands. The kids come with a rod stuck between two rocks because they couldn't touch it. He said, "This is yours." I said, "That's not mine." He said, "Yes, it is." And I looked up on the car, it was mine.
Now, wait a minute. You checked the rod out of it, didn't know?
I knew it blew up, but I didn't realize it came out that bad.
Gotcha.
I knew it was wounded, but I didn't realize a piece of the rod landed over the fence.
It's pretty amazing how far the aftermarket stuff has come throughout the years. I mean, the parts and pieces that are available now versus what you guys were racing with and the performance numbers you got out of that stuff.
Oh yeah, the stuff we had was so big and bulky and heavy, and now the stuff is lighter and stronger and made out of so much better material, and it's a whole different ball game.
Rick, I'm sorry.
I was down at Hendricks. They were running a motor on the dyno down there. Dave Christie works down there. He used to take care of Ronnie's car. And this kid had this motor sitting there at 8,500 or so, and he shut it down. I said, "Son, let me tell you something. Back in the Superstock Hemi days, if we'd have done that with a motor, we'd have knocked both sides of that wall out in there. There'd been parts in the next room."
I spent some time working with David Dickens when he was on the factory Mopar deal doing the Dodge Pro Stock stuff. And yeah, I've seen some of that stuff as well. I mean, you just cringe listening to those things. And one thing's for sure, if one of them comes apart on the dyno, the whole shop has a moment of silence.
Oh yeah.
Everybody up to the receptionist all goes, "No!"
Yeah, that's ugly. But it's amazing how they'll sit there and run. And, I mean, our engines wouldn't do that back then. Them things would have scattered all to pieces. We had parts everywhere.
And what they do over on the Cup side is just, I mean, nothing short of astounding.
Oh.
The fact that they can set those things up and run them 9,600 to go to lunch. And
come back and still running. Yeah, that's what's quite amazing about that. I was talking to a friend who worked at Penske, at Roush, and they're going to do the Penske deal next year. They're putting 200 engines in the cycle for Penske for next year, for all their cars. Is that amazing?
One of the things that I found amazing, and I spent a little bit of time over there, we traded some technology back and forth, especially back in the days when NASCAR guys were allowed to use qualifying motors.
Yeah.
And then they'd switch for the race. Well, the qualifying motors made a little bit more power. They were a little more fragile because they just didn't have to last 500 miles. So we traded some stuff back and forth. I spent a little time down in Evernham's shop down there. A guy by the name of Tommy Wheeler, who was a head engineer and was running the thing. And just the whole mentality of this stuff is so much different with what those guys do versus what we do. When it's like, hey, our car's got to run 6.5 seconds, and if we got to change valve springs, we can.
Yeah.
And their deal is like, wait a minute, you can do what?
Well, I saw a qualifying crank. It weighed 32 pounds. I said it was good for 2 laps. But they did stop that. That cut their cost back to 100. I think they're up to about 36 pounds now.
Yeah, the other thing that I thought was really amazing is that on the NASCAR side of the fence, as Rick Hauser does the burnout, we get the all clear. Race Tech Pistons on the side of that, and Golden Shine, which is a Jim DeFrank company out of California. Rick's going to get the solo here because, well, apparently Larry Perkins wounded his in the first round and was unable to get her to return. But the fact that in NASCAR, the engine is almost a bolt-on part. I mean, in drag racing, obviously, you look at all the maintenance that goes on in the nitro pits, and you look at the fact that the pro stock guys, they'll every 8 to 10 runs on a motor, it's coming apart going through. But in the NASCAR stuff, the engine shop would be completely different from the car stuff. That's just something you plug in.
Yeah.
Ready to go. 854, 157 for Rick Hauser, and it's baffled me that, wait a minute,